councillors, those in the room and those on Zoom, officers and public and press who may be viewing this online through the link on the Council's website. Just to give you the arrangements for tonight's meeting, all councillors joined by video must keep your video on, but mute your microphone unless you have been invited to speak. The formal rules of debate will only apply. All councillors may speak, but only those present in the council chamber may move and/or second a motion and vote on a motion. Councillors, please raise your hands to speak in the usual way, and we'll come to you in turn. So the first item of business is the appointment of Mayor for the 2021-2022 municipal year, and I ask Councillor Lynn Williams to propose the Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Lady Mayor. Happy to move this. I would say Groundhog Day, third time lucky, but we wish you all the very best for another year and hope you have a full year of activities and involvement and get out there and enjoy your year. So, happy to move. Thank you.
I'm happy.
Thank you, Councillor. And to move to votes for, against, and any abstentions. So votes for, please. That looks like we have a full house. So no votes against and no abstentions. Thank you. And I'll turn to the Lady Mayor, Amy Cross, to make the declaration of acceptance of office.
Thank you once again. I don't propose to make this a long one because it is a bit like Groundhog Day. We have been here before. And I'd just like to tell everybody at the moment, if you're not aware online, some of you may not be aware, but those in the room probably noticed something a little bit different today. Unfortunately, I'm unable to stand up at the moment, so I've sort of lost some of the mobility in my legs at the moment, so I won't be asking anybody to do any standing or sitting or any of the above. So you'll be pleased to know that you can stay sat as you are. So I'll read my declaration. I, Councillor Amy Cross, having been elected to the office of Mayor of the Blackpool Borough Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it in according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the Civic Handbook and the Code as to the conduct which is expected of members of Blackpool Borough Council. And I shall sign that away, and that will be us. Thank you very much for that, Paula. So, okay, so for the rest of the meeting, I'm going to chair from here, folks, because it saves us moving around, and it also means that we haven't got any sitting there wiping down chairs and desks and things. It seems very silly to do so on a day like today, so we'll just crack on. So I'm going to move now to the appointment of Deputy Mayor. So it is my privilege to propose Councillor Paula Burdess. Paula supported me last year, although we weren't able to do many things together, but she'd also been there to support me in my initial mayoral year and has actually done some events for me. Paula was relatively new to the council at the time, and it was a good opportunity for her to see some of the different things about Blackpool and the way that the council operates. She was so good that I've asked her to do it again. So I will ask you now, Paula, that in accordance with the subject to provisions of the Local Government Act 1972, Councillor Paula Burdess be appointed Deputy Mayor of the Borough of Blackpool for the municipal year for 2021-2022. And I so move. Can I ask Councillor Williams to speak and second, please?
Thank you, Lady Mayor. Yes, more than happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can I have a show of hands of those of you in the room if you are supporting? And that is unanimous, so I don't have to ask for any abstentions or any against, which is lovely. So I will ask the Deputy Mayor to make the declaration of acceptance of office, please, Paula.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. I, Councillor Paula Burdess, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor of the Blackpool Borough Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the Civic Handbook and the Code as to the conduct which is expected of members of the Blackpool Borough Council. Dated this 24th of May 2021. And I will sign that in front of you.
Thank you very much, Paula. So you are now officially the Deputy Mayor for the forthcoming year. Yay! Okay, we'll move on to the rest of the agenda, everybody. So we'll go on to the declarations of interest. Councillors, can you tell me if you've got any declarations of interest that you need to disclose? Nope. Marvellous. Okay, we'll move on then to announcements. Obviously, we've had some local by-elections since we last met, whether that be online, virtually, or in person. So I'd like to both welcome Councillors Bradley Mitchell and Councillor Julie Sloman. So congratulations and welcome to Blackpool Borough Council. Okay, so moving on, we'll go to item number 5, which is obviously the resolutions of condolence and the minute silence that we will have at the end, unfortunately, because we do have some sad news. So I will be asking people to indicate if they wish to speak. I will take people at first for, and on behalf of Councillor Barry Cresswell. So that will be, I believe, Councillor Lynn Williams, you have indicated you wish to speak.
Yes, thank you, Lady Mayor. In relation to
Barry Cresswell. Oh, sorry, I do apologise. Is it Councillor Benson that's moving this? That's absolutely fine. Councillor Benson, on you go. No, you're all right. You can stay seated.
To the late Councillor Barry Cresswell and offer our condolences to Maureen and family on the sad news that her husband, former Councillor Barry Cresswell, sadly died on the 29th of March this year. Barry was a former county councillor for Warbrick and Greenlands Ward, and following the creation of the Unitary Council, Barry was elected to Warbrick Ward in 1997 and until the year 2000 when he sadly lost his seat. Barry was then elected to Brunswick Ward in a by-election in 2001 following the sad death of council leader George Bancroft. His wife Maureen was also a councillor in the ward and they made a formidable team. They were both well known in the ward as they both lived on Granville Avenue, which is in the heart of Brunswick Ward. Barry served on many council committees. He was passionate about improving educational outcomes for our young people and served as vice chair for many years on Claremont School Governors. I remember Barry as someone who said it as it was. He pulled no punches. You didn't speak to Barry and ask for an opinion if you didn't want the right one, and he told it as it was. He was straight to the point, full of common sense and a great sense of humour. I was a fairly young, naive councillor when I was first elected. Yes, I was young once. And Barry gave me lots and immense support and guidance with Maureen. He also, sorry, Lady Mayor. Also, I didn't drive in those days, so I was always very thankful if Barry was on something because he'd give me a lift home. Barry was an extremely committed and dedicated socialist. I think those members of the group that remember Barry will remember those attributes. He spent his life fighting injustice and equality and making life better for the residents of Blackpool. I'm sure there are plenty of families in Brunswick Ward and Blackpool as a whole that can thank Councillor Cresswell for his help. In 2007, Barry and Maureen decided to retire and move to the Mediterranean island of Gozo, where they spent many happy years. They later returned to England to spend some quality time with their family. I'd like to thank Barry for your friendship, your comradeship and your service to Blackpool. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Benson. Councillor Clapham, are you speaking on behalf of your group? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lady Mayor. I'll take it up from where Barry won the by-election for Brunswick Ward in September of 2001 and joined his wife Maureen as joint councillors for Brunswick. I first remember working with Barry quite a lot on the planning committee. And on inspections, it was great fun. In fact, planning inspections was an excellent place for getting to know people from all parties. And Barry was really good company. During the elections, Barry seemed to spend quite a lot of time observing postal votes for the Labour group. And at that time, I think the ballot papers were face up, the postal ballot papers were. And so Barry gleaned a great position in terms of how PVs were going. And I'd say, hello, Barry, you all right? Everything great? He said, Bispham, you're all right there, Don, they're weighing them. And I thought, what a nice chap this is. Politics out the window, he was just a good all-round person. His predictions were always honest and accurate when it came to how the elections were going to go. And sadly, from my point of view, they nearly always went as a majority for the Labour group. But there we are, that's politics. Barry and Maureen did not want to be mayors, and that moved me 2 years further up the ladder to become mayor. And they stepped down and they went to Gozo, as just been stated. And from my experience, it was family first with Barry and Maureen, politics and everything else certainly second. He was a very good socialist. He was a sound man. He was honest. He was a good councillor, husband and father, and he was well respected by everybody. And it's my pleasure to state that on behalf of the Conservative group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clapham. Councillor Gary Coleman.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. It's just been stated, Barry was Labour through and through. I first met him in 1983. I wasn't the first Coleman to stand in Brunswick Ward. My father actually stood in the good old days of the SDP. And Barry, of course, was a Labour candidate then. And would you believe back then, Lady Mayor, neither of them were elected. The electors chose two Conservative councillors for Brunswick Ward back in those days. I know that Barry and my father did have a mutual respect for each other and a friendship ever since, despite being on opposite sides of the political spectrum sometimes. Barry did, of course, as has been mentioned, live in the centre of Brunswick and was really at the centre of what happened in Brunswick. He was in so many committees and he had so many residents' meetings that back in 2007, when he actually stood down and Councillor Blackburn and myself had been selected for Brunswick, and I have fond memories of the election night. And it must have been about 9:15 in the evening, 9:30 in the evening on election night. And Barry had Councillor Blackburn and myself still knocking on doors at that time in the darkness, and he just wouldn't let us in the car. He kept driving away and shouting out the numbers of the next properties that we were to go to. And without Barry's help, then, of course, we wouldn't have got elected probably that day, because in 2007, lots of Labour councillors lost their seats. It was quite an evening. Yes, Barry went to Gozo and then to even sunnier Skegness, I believe, and I believe they had good times there. I have to thank Barry, and I always will be grateful for his help and friendship. We send our condolences to Maureen and all the family, and just say that Barry had a life well lived and was very respected. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coleman. Does anybody else wish to speak with regards to Councillor Barry Coleman? No? No, sorry, Barry Cresswell. Sorry, you've got to understand that, just for everybody's knowledge, I am on quite a high dosage of tramadol, so this could be a really interesting meeting. So you're just going to have to bear with me. Have we got Councillor Martin Mitchell? I believe you wish to speak.
First people I met when I moved to Blackpool way back in 2006, it gave me a warm welcome. It was interesting. The impression I gained at the start was the impression I still have. He was outstanding public servants. He was diligent, dutiful, everything you would expect in a local councillor. Refreshingly, he lived in his ward. He was a working class councillor in a working class community. A fine example to us all. Long may we continue in Barry's tradition.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. I'd just like to say a few words about Barry myself. I joined the Labour Party when I was about 16, and Barry was one of the councillors along with Maureen. And Barry was always very positive, very supportive, and he always encouraged me to get involved in the Labour Party. He used to say, we need some young uns. And I, of course, helped in some of the Brunswick campaign in 2007. So did spend a lot of time with him, and he was a very kind gentleman, and I'd like to pass on my condolences to both Maureen, their daughter, and the rest of the extended family. We'll now move on then to pay tributes to Richard Ainsley, who was a council officer. I believe he was the Democratic Services Manager at one point. So I will ask Councillor David Owen to speak first.
Mayor, fellow councillors, chief officers and our public looking in. Richard Ainsley was a man of the Fylde. He was born in Lytham St Anne's, attended King Edward VII Grammar School, lived his adult life in Great Eccleston and spent his last few days in the conifers at Hambleton. After taking his degree in history at Liverpool University, he chose local government for his career, working firstly for Liverpool Corporation before he came to us at Blackpool during the year 1975-76. Not many of us are left who knew Richard, but he made a lasting impression on those of us who did. For me, what stays in the memory were his smile, his chuckle, his bustle, and his beard. He never seemed to let anything get him down. That smile was infectious, and its sunlight turned itself on as soon as he met you, whoever you were. He could smile at life too. That chuckle of his was always ready to hide his concerns. He could always seem to find a way around an issue with a remarkable insouciance. Nothing fazed him. He just got on with the job in hand and made things happen. Whenever you saw him about the town hall, he'd be clutching a file, but so often accompanied by a loose sheaf of papers, apparently detached, but at his fingertips when he needed a line in a report. And he seemed to bustle around the place, his shoulders slightly tucked in, always on the go. And that beard of his, I suppose it could be described as an indisciplined goatee. It was entirely idiosyncratic. It looked impossible to trim, but it was his, and without it, Richard would not have been Richard. And it was one of life's little tragedies that one of the kind nurses who looked after him towards the end, well-meaningly no doubt, and simply thinking it had grown haphazardly out of control, shaved it off altogether. This rape of Richard's locks must have been the most hideous of crimes since Delilah did for Samson or Brutus carved up Caesar in that most unkindest cut of all. We all move in circles, their touching as need be the folk we meet. Sometimes links in chains keep your circles forever touching and expanding. One such circle for me, in knowing Richard away from the town hall, was my coming to know his stepdaughter, Margaret. She came for dancing lessons to my Jean's school from being a tiny little thing. That striking auburn hair made her stand out so on the stage, and Richard would often have a chat when he brought Margaret for her lessons. He doted on her. And he and Anne became friends of Jean and me. Whilst Margaret didn't make dancing her career, she was still stage struck and is now in demand here, there and everywhere as a freelance cultural consultant. Richard had been a Bloomfield Road habitué from his schoolboy days and for years had a season ticket. He was balmy with statistics on the successes and failures of the mighty pool. It was so fitting that at his funeral at Carlton, one of Paul Cookson's poems was printed in the service booklet. Paul, poet in residence at the National Football Museum, itinerant teacher in schools up and down the country, a writer of 60 books of poetry, which has sold over 1 million copies, light-heartedly has given us the footballer's prayer. Our team, which art 11, hallowed be thy game. Our match be won, their score be none. On turf, as we score at least 7. Give us today no daily red card, and forgive us our lost passes, as we forgive those who lose passes against us. Lead us not into retaliation, and deliver us from penalties. For 3 is the kick-off, the power and the scorer, forever and ever. Full time. Some of those circling contacts, Lady Mayor, they touch us in the town hall itself. Way back in 2003, Blackpool's town hall was in danger of losing a rising star in democratic services, the department which pulls together all the myriad strands of action at the heart of our activity as a council. Richard was Democratic Services Manager, and at 52 had many potential years ahead of him. One of Richard's juniors was actively seeking a promotion with another authority, and there was a real risk that a person Richard had mentored would be leaving us, and the accumulated wisdom of years would be lost to the authority. When a scheme for volunteers for early retirement was brought in by Steve Weaver as chief executive, Richard decided it was the right time to leave. And so we said goodbye to Richard and made way for Mark Towers to take over from him. Richard was always well organised, sharp, incisive, quick on the uptake, ethical, with a firm commitment to honest public service. After he left us, he involved himself in charitable work and was on Victoria Hospital's scanner committee. It is one of the saddest features of dementia that a man of intellect with enormous ability, presence and commitment should succumb to speech loss and mental oblivion. But we remember all that Richard gave this town as a key officer at a problematic time when we were saying goodbye to past glories and edging our way to a different kind of future. We send our collective commiserations, our condolences to Anne, to Margaret, to Richard's sister Christine and David. They are all in our thoughts today. He meant everything to them. Richard Ainsley meant so much to his friends at Blackpool Council as well.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I will now pass on to Councillor Clapham, who I believe is speaking on behalf of the Conservative group.
Thank you very much. That was extremely well put by David. Perfect description. Few words that I'm going to say. Because of longevity, I think I'm the only one in the Conservative group that knew this gentleman, and hence David was there to speak on behalf of the Labour group. But Richard Ainsley was one of the first officers I dealt with as a new councillor many decades ago. He was always smiling, chirpy, smart, and, as has been stated, had a bundle of papers under his arm. Richard was approachable, and he would say, "Yes, councillor, what can I do for you?" through this toothless smile and his beard. Things were quite formal in those days between officers and councillors. Richard, or should I say Mr. Ainsley, because I was very junior at the time, would look into the problem and a written answer would be produced efficiently, delivered by post along with all the other mail that we got in our large brown envelopes in those days, delivered by taxi. Remember, this was pre-mobile, pre-iPads and the electronics of today. Sounds like a very, very archaic system, but that's how it was. Richard was efficient, he was businesslike, very much old school, but a great officer, much respected by his peers and councillors alike. One of the legacies here today is, without a doubt, in the chamber, Mark Towers, who was Richard's junior. I think that Richard was his line manager at the time. Mark was also quite junior. I feel as if I've grown old with Mark. I'm a lot older than Mark, but there we are. He's risen through the ranks, and a mark of what Richard did in terms of being one of the bosses at the time. Mark is now Director of Governance and Partnerships, and to me that is a great legacy of the man, and he is certainly an example in terms of officers for anyone to follow. You couldn't go wrong in terms of working well with councillors and gain everyone's respect. And Richard certainly did that. And I'm glad I'm old enough to have known him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clapham. Councillor Gary Coleman.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. Mr Ainsley had left the council when I was elected, but it's quite clear from those that worked with him how well respected and well regarded he was, and it seems quite evident that he would support people to advance themselves as best they could. So on behalf of our group, we send our condolences to Mr Ainsley's family and friends, and we thank him for all of his hard work on behalf of the people of Blackpool. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. I too was obviously not here or elected when Mr Ainsley was a council officer, but if all the things that today we've heard have been true, then I absolutely must thank them, because without Richard, I definitely wouldn't have had the support of Mark Towers over the last few years, which has definitely been invaluable. So I'd like to thank him for that, if nothing else. We'll now move on. I'd just like to say that on behalf of Blackpool Council and the residents of Blackpool, the leader will pay tribute to Jordan Banks. Jordan was tragically killed on Tuesday the 11th of May, and we would like to express our sincere condolences to his family and to his friends. I know all of us will have heard about Jordan, and lots of us have had different reactions in different ways. It's certainly something that has hit our community hard, but has also seen our community come together in lots of ways that we didn't think possible. And I think it's only right that we pay our respects to him and his family in the chamber today. So I'd like to ask Councillor Lynn Williams to please speak.
The tragic death of Jordan, one so young, has touched us all. On behalf of this council, I pass our deepest condolences, thoughts and prayers to Jordan's family, friends, school and community. For one so young, the admiration for how he lived his life, kindness, love he showed to others has been inspirational to hear. I hope that in time, Jordan's family and loved ones can take some comfort from the outpouring of love and support from across the whole of this town, which we have seen. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lynn Williams. I'd like to ask if Councillor Tony Williams would like to speak on behalf of the Conservative group.
I would, Lady Mayor. Thank you. I think we're all saddened and touched by the tragic event that took the life of this special young man. From not only here in Blackpool, but across the world, we've seen tributes to it. It really was a tragic thing. Many years ago, Lady Mayor, someone gave me a book of poems, which I've cherished all this time. And there's one particular poem I'd like to dedicate to Jordan's mum and dad and the rest of his family. It's called The Loss of a Child, and it's by Robbie Shulworth. They often lay awake at night when the world is fast asleep and take a walk down memory lane with tears upon their cheek. Remembering you is easy. They do it every day. But missing you is a heartache that never goes away. They hold you tightly within their hearts, and there you will remain. Life will go on without you, but it will never be the same. For those who still have their children, treat them with tender care. You will never know the emptiness as when you turn and they are not there. On behalf of all the Conservative College, we extend our sympathies to those who love Jordan and pray that they receive the strength and courage they need throughout the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tony Williams. I'll ask Councillor Gary Coleman.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. None of us here can adequately express how the passing of Jordan has made us all feel. It is impossible for any of the words we say today to do justice to Jordan's memory. Most of us didn't have the pleasure of meeting Jordan, but I'm sure that we are now all aware of what a special young man he was. From watching videos of him raising money for charity to hearing stories of his unique kindness, it's quite clear that Jordan was a wonderful person. I'm sure we have all asked why such a kind soul be taken so tragically early. It is such a sad question, and one that is impossible to answer. As one of those special people that care for others more than they care for themselves, I've no doubt that Jordan would have grown up to be a valuable member of society and a person that would have achieved great things. Lady Mayor, later in the meeting we are going to discuss the Blackpool Medal. We're going to agree that one of the criteria for who the medal is given to is someone who has made a key and recognised contribution to the borough as a whole, or to its communities beyond which it is expected of citizens, or has achieved regional or national significance and in so doing promoted Blackpool. I think we can all agree that Jordan more than qualifies. After witnessing the amazing outpouring of goodwill, both near and far, for Jordan, I believe that it would be more than fitting for him to be awarded with the Blackpool Medal. Sadly, we will never know what wonderful things Jordan would have done for our town and the people in it, but we are sure that it would have been something our town would have been proud of. Indeed, at our last group leaders meeting, we were discussing whether to introduce a youth Blackpool Medal, so I know not whether that may be a possibility to be considered, Lady Mayor. I firmly believe that Jordan's legacy will continue to inspire both young and old in years to come. We join in sending our condolences to Jordan's family and friends and let them know that he has touched the hearts of thousands of people around the world. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman, and I'm sure that conversation can be had between the leaders at another date, but thank you for putting that on record. I will now continue with the resolution. So, the Council sends its deepest sympathy to the family and friends of former Councillor Barry Cresswell, Mr Richard Ainsley and Jordan Banks for their loss. And with regard to the former Councillor Barry Cresswell and Mr Richard Ainsley, the Council places on record its recognition of their dedication of service to the borough. And I'd now like to ask if Councillor Williams will second that motion.
Yes, happy to second, Lady Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can I confirm that people are happy with the motion? All those in favour? Agreed, thank you. In which case we will now hold a minute's silence. Please remain in your seats. Thank you very much, everybody. I think that's an appropriate mark of respect. It's always a shame when we have to start our meetings with sad loss, but let's remember today that we're here also to celebrate the lives of those people and the contributions that they made to our town. I'm now going to move on to agenda item 6. Can I ask councillors to agree the minutes for the meeting held on the 8th of March? Now, let me just double check with people. I know there was a set that was set out that was incorrect, so it's the second set that was sent out that we are referring to. Can I ask if people do agree that that is a true and correct record? Thank you very much. In which case then we will move on to agenda item 7, which is the scrutiny lead member, pages 9 to 14 of your agenda pack. Councillor Lynn Williams, I believe you're moving this.
Yes, thank you, Lady Mayor. Happy to move agenda item 7, scrutiny lead member. Thank you.
Thank you. And seconding, is it Councillor Ivan Taylor?
Very happy to second that, indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I'd like to ask, has Councillor Mrs Callow got anything to add at this particular juncture? She may do so if she wishes. I can't see her on my screen, so I don't know whether she's saying yes or no. Has she got there? Because I can't see her on my screen, Yvonne. Ah, there we are. Hello there, Councillor Maxine Callow.
Yes, thank you, Lady Mayor. I would just like to thank the Leader of the Council for proposing me for this position. It has been an enjoyable experience and something that I've been very proud of. And at this point in time, I would just like to thank Sharon Davis and the other officers for all their cooperation, and also the members of the scrutiny committees and the chairs and vice chairs. I think through the last 2 years, that everybody has worked as a team, and we've achieved a lot, but we've still got an awful lot of work to do. But thank you very much. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Councillor Mrs Callow. Is anybody else wishing to speak on this item? No. Okay, marvellous. Councillor Williams, it's your right to reply to Councillor Mrs Callow? No? Okay. In which case we'll go straight to the vote on the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Marvellous. And that's a full house, so we don't need to go on to any against or abstentions. So that is Councillor Mrs Callow for the scrutiny lead member. Moving on now to agenda item 8, which is the appointment of committees, pages 15 to 24. Councillor Lynn Williams, I believe you're proposing.
Yes, thank you. Happy to move this. Excuse me, this is my voice. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Okay, and seconding the motion, is it Councillor Ivan Taylor?
Happy to second, Lady Mayor.
Thank you very much. Is anybody else wishing to speak on this particular agenda item? Councillor Gary Coleman.
Yeah, thank you, Lady Mayor. I'm somewhat distressed to find that the former chair of the Tourism, Economy and Community Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Martin Mitchell, no longer has the chair of the committee, no longer has a chair of anything, while there are some members of the Labour group that have chairs of 2 committees or even 3 in one occasion, but that does include the public protection. One worries that Councillor Mitchell has been taken off the chairmanship as a result of his at the call-in meeting a few months ago regarding the Stanley Park Golf Club and the sale of basically half of the golf club, half of the golf course. It just seems sad that what should be a non-political role on a scrutiny appears to have become political, because as we know, chairmanships do pay good money. And I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if Councillor Mitchell isn't even on any outside bodies or boards of any of our local companies, which again would not saying too much, but I know on occasions that's the way the Labour Party has worked locally. I was hoping that now there was a change in leadership, it may not be the case. Yeah, I will leave it at that. Thank you, Lady Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Have we got any other councillors wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Tony Williams.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. It's been pointed out to me tonight that in most other councils, or in some other councils, it's the opposition that chair the scrutiny committees. And it's fairly new to me, so I will check. But I wonder if Mr. Mark Towers and I could have a conversation in regard to that at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Have we got any other councillors wishing to speak? Nope. Okay. In which case, Councillor Lynn Williams, it's your right of reply.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. First, as regards Councillor Williams, but it was, I understand that that is the case in some councils, but obviously in line with the report not too long ago from the North West employers, their recommendation was, as we do it currently with the opposition member as the deputy position, so that we followed the recommendation from that scrutiny review from North West employers. Was a recommendation, yeah. As regards Councillor Coleman, I'm not going to comment too much because as he used a lot of peers would think of, and ultimately, it's down to me as leader to set that. I don't have to make any reassurances, nor do I have to defend making my decisions. And clearly, it may matter to him, and I'm sure it was. I think it's more of a relevant to his days of how he remembers. But I can reassure him that that certainly isn't how we operate. And I'm not going to say any more because I don't think it is relevant for this meeting here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. In which case, we will move on to the vote on the motion. Can I ask for all those in favour, please show of hands. Okay, have we got any against? Thank you, Councillor Coleman. And any abstentions? I think that was everybody, wasn't it? One against and yeah, okay. That's so that then is carried. We'll move on now to item 9, programme of meetings, which is pages 25 to 34. Councillor Lynn Williams, I believe you're moving this.
Yes, thank you, Lady Mayor. Happy to move. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Taylor, is it you seconding again?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. In which case, have we got any other councillors wishing to speak on this particular item? Is there anybody online? Because I can't see everybody at the moment. My screen has changed. I'm not hearing anybody, so I'm going to take that as a no. In which case then, you have a right to reply, but there's nothing to reply to, Councillor Williams, so I will move straight on to the vote on the motion. Can I ask all those in favour to raise their hands? And that, I believe, is unanimous, folks, so we don't need to ask the others, which is brilliant. So that is then carried unanimously, in which case we'll move on to agenda item 10, which is the scheme of delegation and changes to the Constitution, pages 35 to 36. Councillor Lynn Williams, is this one you as well?
Yes, thank you, Lady Mayor. Happy to move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And, well, Councillor Taylor, is this you seconded?
I might change my mind because what you just said. No,
it's all right.
No, but yes, I will second it.
I was going to say, you don't want to change your mind right now because then we've got to find somebody else. Okay, so Councillor Taylor has formally seconded that motion. In which case, I will ask, has anybody else got anything that they would like to say? Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. It was just more of an academic question for the leader, if I may. I wondered if the leader had considered a return to the committee system for Blackpool.
No.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. I can probably tell you what the answer to that is, but I'll refrain and let Councillor Williams do that herself. Is anybody else wishing to speak on this particular item? Anybody online at all? I'm going to take that as a no then. Councillor Lynn Williams, right to reply.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. I gave that answer that actually moving my lips then, didn't I? I sounded very like Councillor Taylor, but no, we haven't.
Thank you very much. In which case I will go straight to the vote on the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous, so that is carried. Thank you very much. And we will now move on to agenda item 11, which is the Blackpool Medal, pages 37 to 40 in your agenda. Councillor Lynn Williams, I believe you're moving this.
Yes, thank you, Lady Mayor. This was obviously, we have discussed this previously, and I know it has the full support of the council. Obviously, and I'm happy to move the motion, and we can make those arrangements in due course. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to second the motion, is it Councillor Tony Williams?
It is, Lady Mayor, yes. I'm delighted to second this motion. I can't think of two more deserving people than Councillor Peter Kelly and Councillor Willie Henderson, who've given so much of their lives to this council and the people of Blackpool.
Thank you very much there, Councillor. Do any other councillors wish to speak on this particular item? Anybody in the room? No? Anybody online? No? Okay, marvellous. In which case, you have a right to reply, but I don't think you need it, Councillor Lynn Williams, so I'm going to move then straight to the vote on the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And that is a unanimous decision, so that is definitely carried. And I'd like to say that that concludes today's business. So that was nice and short and sharp, and out we go. So enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and thank you very much for attending the meeting.
Can we repeat this at future meetings? Is that, am I in order in proposing that?
Sorry, what's that, Councillor Taylor?
We do this at every meeting.
I'd love to, love to. I think Mark might have something to say about it, though. Thank you, ladies and gents.